Welcome back to another episode of The Zone Presents. We have a very special guest here all the way from Ocala, Mr. Gary Brideau.
What's up, Gary? Man? How's it going? How's it going?
Man. Thanks for coming, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I know, it's been a long time coming, right?
Yeah, a long time coming, man.
Yeah, man. We've known each other since the beginning.
Back OGs.
Right? Right? So we'll get right into it, man. Obviously you've been around for what, a couple years now?
Going on 3.
Really?
This December will be 3 years.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It seemed like yesterday, and we'll get into that we sat down. But there's like this buzz, there's this story, there's this person. He's named Car Wash Gary.
Yeah, I think I heard of him.
About that.
I think I heard of him a couple times.
Yeah.
So Car Wash Gary, I've been working here for 3 years. Car Wash Gary started, I guess, from where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I got recruited from the car wash. Judd actually was getting his car washed. It wasn't even a nice car.
What kind of car was it?
It was like a 2012 Cadillac. So it was like, and it was old too. And
Yeah.
I guess it was Aubrey's car, so it was like a whole bunch of baby stuff in it.
Oh, nice.
So it was super nasty. It was actually kind of funny.
We got you in here, and what was really like, he comes in, I'm sure you see 100, 200 cars a day or whatever. Like, what was different about that approach or different about him?
I think really with Judd, it was how he was going about the conversation.
Yeah.
He was kind of asking me what I wanted to do with my future, what my plans were, and I never had anyone ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And he was another young guy, so it was very, young, ambitious person, so you can kind of feel that.
Yeah.
And I had multiple people offer me jobs before. I was in a pretty good spot. I was running the car wash, and there was just a special buzz about him, right? So he kept calling me. He ended up catching me on one of my days off, and I remember answering the phone pretty frustrated.
Yeah.
Because he called me probably 8 times, and I was like, dude, what? Yeah, like what the freak is going on?
Yeah.
And he finally got me into an office, or I guess what was called an office then.
What was it, an Airbnb?
No, it was an apartment complex.
Yeah, just as good.
Dude, it was the crazy. I'd never been a 1099 employee,
Yeah.
so my thought process of what I was going into was totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into an apartment. I saw a bunch of guys that were just all sitting in a bunch of foldable chairs.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what was going on. And I saw someone show me a check because obviously they're trying to sell me.
Yeah.
And I saw someone show me a check for a decent amount of money, and I just knew my worth, and I knew that I could go out there and get it.
Yeah.
So
obviously that's a good conversation to have, like, going from some kind of salary or hourly pay where it's guaranteed and then transitioning to something that is really dependent on your efforts and your success. What attracted you, scared you? Kind of go into detail on that.
Perspective. I think perspective is huge. I remember a saying I was told, I used to get paid for the time spent at my job. Now I get paid for the value that I bring.
I like that.
So now, because of the value that I bring to the marketplace, you get rewarded a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But I think switching your perspective and kind of understanding, hey, it is a commission-based job that isn't, salary, or I don't know that I'm getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a negative thing, but that could also be a positive.
True.
So if you are that overperformer who, let's say, feels like they should get paid more money or feels like they are bringing more value, to me this job was super appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in control of my destiny.
True. And it takes a lot to just be in control of it and actually commit to it and be, consistent with it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I remember when I first met you, just to go back a little bit, we were in Port St. Lucie, right?
Port St. Lucie, PSL.
Yeah, we were doing.
Or it might have been West Palm Beach.
Actually, it was West Palm.
West Palm Beach.
And we were running a blitz, and we were in Airbnb, and I remember like this was yesterday, guys. It was my first introduction to AKE.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Hey, you gotta go sit in the clothes with this guy Gary Brideau," and I said, "Okay." And I go and meet you there, and we had a really interesting interaction on our first close, nonetheless. But what I did learn in that time, and I'll let you expand on a little bit on it, is how well you handled, a transition and adversity of how the conversations were going, because this was not a lay down.
No,
this was a difficult kind of close. Right?
Yeah, you had to work for it. That's for sure.
So I think going out, and what I want to attack here is, you never know who you're going to meet, right, in this job, and you never know who's going to be behind the door and who's really going to need to learn more from you. And I think what I did learn, and I want you to talk about this, is you were able to diffuse the uncomfortable conversation and make it be, uncomfortable pitch, so to speak, and make it a real good conversation where, I was there for about an hour and left, and I know you did a great job following up.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So that one I did have to follow up and go finish the deal.
Yeah.
But I think keeping your composure, and one of the things that I learned when I first started here was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming at this sale or coming with this operation from a from a teaching aspect really, really helps you out. And not only like, hey, I'm going to go in and teach my customer things, but just for your own sake. When you're teaching someone things, it's a whole lot easier for me, it's a whole lot easier to make the sale. And you're able to expand on different points. So when you have all this commotion and stuff going on, I think reeling it back in is super hard to do. But you have a format regardless of the situation or regardless of who you're dealing with. I'm going to stick to my format. Yes, some things are going to change. Yes, you're going to deal with some weird customers or a weird situation. But I think the more grounded that you stay, the better it'll always be. So I do remember when we first started, it was actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you're closing then, but just to dial back again, it's kind of similar with doors as well. Give some insight on how that was for you.
Absolutely. So I mean, when I was knocking doors, it's super easy to get discouraged. Especially, I'd never seen a door-to-door job, let alone the whole door-to-door industry. So I think just understanding how important those rejections and those no's are is good. It was actually funny. I remember one of the days I was getting frustrated on the doors, and I ended up calling someone. And it changed my perspective, I think, for the rest of my career. So, I'm on the phone, and obviously, I mean, if you want to complain, you can complain for as long as you want. So I was complaining, and it changed my perspective because I was saying I had a bad day. Oh my gosh, it was such a bad day. It was such a bad day. And the person on the phone was like, no, Gary, this is a learning day. This is a day for you to learn. This is a day for you to never make that mistake again.
Not true.
And I think every single mistake that you have, especially in this job, since there's so many of them, there's so much rejection, so many mistakes that you make, I think it really, really, if you change your perspective towards things, I think that's really what sets a lot of people apart.
It's relative. I mean, I think, anyone that comes in, I feel that, it's a job where failure is actually accepted. You're supposed to fail.
Anticipated,
right?
Yeah.
It's like baseball. You can fail 70% of the time and succeed 30% of the time. We consider a legend. Obviously the number's a little bit different here, but that's the difference between a successful rep getting into here from a comfortable job and staying long term like you, because now not only did you come in into an Airbnb or apartment, have to see all these kids in foldable chairs, wondering if you're in the right space, and then progressing like you did, and now you're running one of the top offices in our company, which is a huge testament of you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the, I guess the funny thing is we were getting a little bit more corporatized, I would say, in the West Palm Beach. So even before then, it was even more of a crazy, I thought it was a Ponzi scheme. And I think just seeing all these things come to fruition, having that conviction that I think I was always looking for, I mean, the sky's the limit here. So I think it really comes to how you look at failing, because like the saying that I heard where you need to fail forward, I think that really changed me. So
see what you're falling on, right?
Yep.
So just to shift a little bit, what kind of car were you driving when you first started?
So when I drove a 340i.
Okay.
So it was right under the M3. I couldn't afford the M3. But no, I always been a car guy, so I know everything about cars. I love nicer cars, I guess you could say. But no, I had a BMW, and I remember I hated driving people out, and I had to have a whole nother talk with Judd about my
vehicle.
Put
extra gas in there, right?
Premium
fuel.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because you didn't know this. I was gonna say this, but driving today, we both came in at the same time, and now you drive a pretty nice truck, right?
So it's a big boy,
but it's an investment, and that's what I want to talk to you a little about today. Is like you've taken this job and not only have had success with it, just on your own perspective, but also financially you've had a lot of success. What's some of the things you've invested in that has really made you separate yourself from some of the rest?
I guess a couple things to start off with. The most important thing that I heard was like people are the most important investment. What's going to happen when there's a recession? Well, if you're able to work and you have a team behind you, then you're able to beat the recession.
Sure.
So I try to find ways to put myself in front of the curve, in front of the, I guess, problems, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But for me, what I really like to invest in, and kind of what got me investing, was just the opportunity behind it. When you think of sales, and like I said, I don't have a sales background. None of my family have been in sales. You always think, okay, it's going to be quick money. Then when it's gone, it's gone. So ever since I started, I remember my dad, I remember my mentors always telling me, this needs to be worth it for later on in your life. So I don't know if you ever heard the saying, if you put $5,000 away when you're 20, by the time you're 65, it's going to be, $1 million plus, whatever it may be. My mindset was, okay, cool. Well, instead of putting $2,000, I'm going to put $200,000, and then we'll see what happens when it's, at that point.
Full send a little bit.
Exactly.
Good, man. Good. Well, is there anything that you're investing in that you think is something that guys should start to look into?
Specifically, I think what we need to understand is investing is very obtainable for a lot of different guys. I think it's just how comfortable you are with it.
Okay.
So I was able to learn a lot about investing. I was able to learn a lot about what to invest in. And I think getting that extra push from my mentors and asking for help was the most important thing. I taught myself a lot about the stock market.
Yeah.
So when you go look into these things, it's easy to talk about it, but YouTube University is real. All of the guys that are making these videos on investing, you know, Kramer, there's a whole lot of people that you can look to that will help you learn what you need to learn. But a good baseline I would think everyone should look up is index funds.
Okay.
And the importance of index funds and kind of investing on that median. That's just going to 100% make you money over
Well, what's
time.
an index fund?
I think the interpretation is important, but an index fund, it's not one sole company.
Okay.
So I'm able to, let's say cars, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not just going to go invest in one single company, because then all my money depends on if that company does good or not.
Correct.
I'm going to invest in a car industry type index fund, right?
Okay.
And I don't know the exact ticker, don't quote me on it. But that's the general concept of index funds. Is instead of putting all that risk into one simple company, I'm able to put it into a market, whether it be cars, whether it
Got
be
it.
solar, whether it be whatever it is. So that way you can just kind of choose your returns a little bit
Kind
better.
of like a diversified, you know, in one investment, I guess you could
It's
say.
exactly what it is. And I mean, you got to think, I think my dad said something to me, anyone can make money. It's very easy. It's all about how you spend it. So spending it, I think, is the most important part. A lot of people think, oh, let me kind of pack rat my money, get it so I have $400,000 or $500,000 in the bank. You only make 1 or 2% on that.
Yeah.
So if anything, that's putting yourself more in a hole.
Yeah, because you spend too much money up front.
Yep.
Right.
So teaching yourself all those things, getting your money in the market. I mean, we're so young, and most guys who start this job are young and get a lot of quick money. You need to make sure, you need to build your retirement. You need to build up your life for the future.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my whole premise is with investing, is I'm not looking for quick money at all. Like, that's all for my retirement for later on.
Which is cool, because I know, you know, come from where you were in the car wash and now where you are now, it's like you're light years of the person you were 3 years ago.
Completely. Shed the car wash Gary skin.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
yes.
that tank that just sheds the skin, it's gone and it's never coming back. And I think what's really cool, and this is something for you people at home, is not only did Gary change his life from this, but he was able to tell some of his friends and buddies and people he just met along the way at any car wash that this opportunity is real, but it is what you make of it, right? Because we know a lot of people that come in here and they see the success and they felt, oh, this is a Ponzi scheme, whatever, but then they realize it's not, and they're happy where they are, but then they make some good money, and then what happens? They fall off, because consistency always wins. Complacency is a tough one, right? So I kind of want to talk to you about that, because you've been consistent, super consistent. Even since you had the office, this office is consistently grown and gotten better. And like I said, you're literally the number one office, I believe, in the company.
Yeah.
So keep it up. But it's a tribute to the guys that you brought in. You know, I know Austin has done a really good job, and some of the people you brought in.
Absolutely.
So.
Austin Williams is an absolute killer.
Yeah.
So I think having important leadership behind you, you know, I didn't do this myself at all. Building up the guys that are under you, having a team that's behind you, I think is the difference. Also just creating a standard for yourself. You know, I remember Judd saying, you know, you don't want to live in mediocrity. And you don't really understand it as you go through it, but the people who do get the sales, and then they go back in the slumps, and then they get your sales, go back in your
And
slumps.
solar coaster.
Well, there's mediocrity in this job too.
Yeah.
So there's you can be very complacent making 50 to 100 or whatever it may be, but I think complacency is the enemy of all progress.
I like
And always just pushing your limit. I mean, like you can't get 30 and then think you can't get more than that.
Yeah.
Or you can't get 20 and then think you can't do better.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think a lot of people struggle on the same line what we're talking about. Is like, you know, let's say a car wash guy makes $35,000 a year, $40,000 a year. How difficult was it for you when you started making some significant weekly checks to not be like, hey, $35,000, $40,000 was like what I would have made? Like, what makes you want to go out, get up again and go hard the next day?
Perspective.
Always.
When I was growing up, I remember this wall. It was at my house, and my dad made me paint this wall. It was like for one of our like car ports or pull-ins, whatever it was.
Okay.
And it was an outside wooden wall, and I had to paint it like 4 times. And I was probably 12.
Okay.
And obviously I didn't want to do it. I wanted to go play with my friends. It took me like 6 hours. And my dad taught me that regardless of how I feel, that wall needs to be painted. So whether I'm making $35,000 painting that wall, or whether I'm making, you know, 3.5 painting that wall, I'm going to paint that wall as best I can, and my name's on it.
Wow.
So I think really, you have to think, this job is so amazing because of the money, but
Yeah.
it's a double-ended sword. So if I let all that money get to my head and I forget who I was before, that's when you ride the solar coaster.
Great
so
point.
I've tried to get myself off of the solar coaster by just remembering who I was and remembering my work ethic.
Yeah.
If I was working 65 hours a week at a car wash for $800, I don't care what I have to do here. I'm going to find a way to do whatever I need to.
I love that. I think it's humbling to hear that, and obviously, we've had the conversation like, you've done enough that you can buy anything you want. You rock a $60 watch. I love it.
Shark clip.
What do you
Stay
say?
humble.
Stay humble, right?
Yeah, I got to do it for all my Florida man stuff.
Yeah.
So
It just says a lot. I mean, I think a lot of times where we lose some of these young talents, or even some of the older talent, is because they get a taste of what we've created and what has become, and then they forget that rent's due every day.
Yep.
Or they spend all their money on stuff because it came in Friday and it's out Saturday.
Yeah, it's something. It's actually funny. My first manager told me it back when I first started, so I'm sure that you know him.
Okay.
But we didn't work this hard to only come this far.
Yeah.
So I didn't work my whole life off or sacrifice some of the things that I've sacrificed to only make what I'm making now. Like, I have to continue to grow, continue to build, and people feel that. You can't just say these things.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge testament to Ocala. Whether it be me, whether it be Austin, whether it be Tony Gomez, Colby Goodwin, all the boys we got out there, they are constantly pushing the needle because they know what they deserve.
Yeah. And your PRA is high, so everyone's
It's ridiculous.
loving it, right?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
what shows a really successful office, successful team going forward. But I just want to kind of wrap up on a couple things because I think they're important. I know you invest yourself. What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm reading The Monk, or
Okay.
the monk that sold his Ferrari.
Yeah.
So I listened to it a little bit, and then after hearing some more tidbits and some more ideas, I think that it causes a lot of value.
Okay.
But I would say the most important book, and the one that I've read the most, is just Extreme Ownership. Yeah, I want to be in control of my life, and if I let all of these other situations and excuses be in control, then I can't choose where I want to go.
Yeah, it's a great book for what we do because obviously every single door is, the high and the lows that happen, and if you can control your emotions, that book does a really good job of doing that for you.
Well, it just puts it into real life. I mean, you can think about all these things, but when you have to wake up every day or go through those 20 doors that got told no, and then you have to go through another 40 doors that got told no, but then you find those two, you start believing in all of that stuff and believing in yourself.
Yeah, it's that voice in your head that you need out there.
Absolutely.
We laugh about this, but we actually mean it when we say like, hey, this really changed our lives. Tell me a little about Ric Flair and what he's done for you.
Oh, gosh. Ric Flair, so it's funny, Austin Williams, actually, because when you first came in, I remember, I didn't know who Ric Flair was, I just loved his energy.
Yeah.
And I remember Austin asking me, he's like, dude, do you even know who Ric Flair is? Because I used to watch WWE, but I didn't know it like that.
It's a little before you.
Yeah, it's a little bit before my time. And he showed me a video of just his mentality and just like the standard he set for himself.
Yeah.
And you can get as silly as you want with it, but I think just the intensity of, regardless of what he's going through, he knows he's going to be the champ. Regardless of the adversity he's having to face, like he's going to figure out a way through it. And just not giving yourself the time of day. If you give your emotions and you give negative thoughts, I mean, you could think all day long, all week long if you want to, but that's going to keep you farther and farther from your goals. So I think Ric Flair is like a super good just reset point.
What's been fun is you used to text me all the time, pictures of Ric Flair, find them all over the internet,
Yep.
and it would just immediately bring me back to like our first interaction. More importantly, like I realized what it was doing when we did a 2 clap and a Rick, and just that little bit of change of energy is like almost everything sometimes for someone when they're going through it. 60
Absolutely.
doors, they're getting beat up. Like I remember that would run in my head, and I'm just glad that you were able to take it on and take it further with it.
Absolutely.
Right?
You should ask anyone that's in Ocala. All I send are Ric Flair memes. So
I love that, brother.
passing it on.
We want to know one more thing before you roll out here. What's like one fun fact about Gary Brideau that maybe no one knows about?
Fun fact. I love to swim.
Really?
Yeah, I love to swim. So
Okay.
whether it be in the ocean, whether it be scuba diving, whether it be swimming in a pool, I think just you being underwater, it's very peaceful. So when you live in this kind of job where whether you're a manager or a closer, or even a setter, and you got so many different customers, clients, phones going crazy, I think just like going to swim, that's where I can clock out and I don't have to listen to anyone.
I heard like people like to go hunting or fishing and they get that vibe. Me, it's golf. So I think it's pretty cool. That's the first time I heard like being underwater. It is peaceful. It's quiet. There's no one really can distract you, and technology's not there for you either, right?
No,
Which
no.
tends to be-
So I remember it was Austin Williams. He took me for my first scuba dive,
Okay.
and that was like one of the first times I came down to Florida, and we've been hooked ever since.
Sweet,
so
brother.
we try to go.
Well, hey, thanks for coming in today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks
It's
for having
been
me.
fun. So I think we need to close out the right way, man.
Hey,
Give it
hey.
to him strong.
2 clapping a Rick,
Let's
baby.
go. Woo! Thanks, Gary.